Cool. All right. Well, welcome to the Humans of Grappling podcast, number 12. We're here with Jonathan Fuentes. He's a biomechanic and movement philosopher, and I don't know. I don't know if that's how you describe yourself, but yeah. What is it that you do?
Like my own opinions about it that are
I see.
philosophical in nature. So I guess you could say that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, what you teach people how to move well, and you've also found jiu-jitsu along the way. So have those kind of coincided with each other in your journey, or have the
Yeah, I think
which
for the
came first?
most part, like I don't know if like my movement work has made me like a really good athlete on the mats because
Hmm.
I'm not super like trying to like be super athletic like on the mats. Although the more like comfortable I feel doing jujitsu, the more athletic kind of things may look. But I would say like if I were to imagine myself as like the best jujitsu player that I would want to be,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like conservative in terms of like longevity in the sport.
Hmm.
So I think of people like Jean-Jacques Machado. I think of people like Gordon Ryan. People who like they don't have a super crazy explosive game, but they can still
Hmm.
win and feel comfortable and kind of slowly but surely get to where they want to go.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to be the same way. I don't have like a big flashy moves or anything like that, or high amplitude throws. We've or get slammed or slam other people. That's a
Yeah, yeah,
topic of contention in
yeah.
the group
I
chat.
just don't. I don't have that like seeing red, let the bodies hit the
Yeah.
floor, kind of like mentality. You know, like when I go to
Right.
the
You
academy,
don't
like
have that mentality, bro.
no, I don't. I don't have
Not.
that mentality. Like when I go to the academy,
Yeah.
I'm usually thinking about what I want to work on
Yeah.
and listening to my coach and taking into consideration what he's saying and try to work on that a little bit. Sometimes I'll try to work on moves that they showed. My current professor, Jay at Ethereal, he like in the gym I was at previously, which is still a good gym. I guess I'm like a Creonote or whatever. I don't know,
Creonch.
Creonche or whatever.
Yeah.
But really, I'm just trying to find a place with like a decent schedule to like do jujitsu at. I've been doing
Right.
morning classes, but what Jay does, he just kind of like shows you moves and then lets you play like a little bit. Like he'll show you
Mm.
like you can do this, like here's what you can do if you have like shin on shin and like he's more conceptual, right? So he'll like show you
Hmm.
what you can do in this position and
Yeah.
maybe he'll show you like one or two techniques just like other places, but for the most part he'll do a little bit more like situational stuff where like okay now literally what I just showed you here for like a minute or two 5 minutes with your partner, try and like put that into action. And the reason why I like that is I'll try and do that sparring previously, but
Mm.
I'm like so way like if like I literally just learned it, so I mean the chances of
Hmm.
me learning like all the steps from step one to step 20 and then do
Yeah.
it under high pressure
Yeah.
is so low. And sometimes, like I'll hit the move, but like it's just so low. But with that kind of approach, you can work on what the professor is showing you, at least for 5 minutes where you're actually trying to do it. Sometimes
Hmm.
I'll do like even more specific stuff. So, like for me, I like sitting on my ass on the bottom
Mm.
and, just being more aggressive in that open guard where you're approaching the guy, trying to do like an
Hmm.
arm drag, trying to off balance him more, stuff that you see like good guys do, but
Sure.
you just kind of needed like someone to kind of, at least for me, like you need someone to kind of explain it to you a little bit. I'm not the guy
Sure.
that's just gonna like do something like, yeah, maybe like I hit a move like from an instructional I watched like right off the bat. Sometimes that'll
Hmm.
work, but it's better when you have like in the academy like just for me personally, I have like that constant, just trying to like work on something, and trying to like
Hmm.
improve. improve something and try to create like some kind of continuity from like, okay, this is shit right now, and I'm just trying to like make it something, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And your academy sounds like it's a great place to like experiment for you to like you it sounds like you have a you he sets like a direction, but then you can like kind of play with it and like develop what you want to develop, work on what you want to work on.
They're a little like
focus.
No, go ahead. I don't want to finish that.
Oh, but you get to like get this focused work on the situational sparring is huge. It's
definitely.
important.
So like I'm not super like competitive. Like you went to ADC trials, you competed like at a high level. You know, but it's also kind of like a good thing doing like these in-house competitions. You know, because like
Mr. Competitor now. You just you said you would never compete, but now you did.
Yeah.
What made that change?
I just wanted to see if I could do what I like, basically do what I always do, and see if I could get the submission and have like no adrenaline doing it.
Sure.
So like in the beginning, like my professor's looking at me and he's like, "Oh my, like do something," and I'm just like chilling. You know what I mean? And like maybe I'll get the submission, or like I'm not thinking of points. I'm not thinking of the time. I'm literally just thinking about trying to do jiu-jitsu and feeling comfortable in like uncomfortable situations. Like the first time that I went to the academy, I was working on passing, so I was just working passing with him. And like, okay, passing's good. Maybe I like pass the guard a little bit. And then all of a sudden he like turned it up really high and he's doing all these crazy moves like shin on shin to like a double Koigi fake to like a double leg. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. So there's levels. And then I rolled with a really big, like 220 pounds at least, white belt, who I'm sure has been practicing for a while. And, I was like, hey man, can I, just work on pass his guard a little bit. And then he's like, can I get on top? I'm like, okay, like I don't really have like a bottom game, you know what I mean? Like my bottom game basically is like half guard, and I'm trying to like add more things to it. And he just passes my guard, right? And he's like so heavy, so crushing. Yeah. I was chilling there for like 45 minutes. 45 minutes. He was trying to submit me, and he's just sweating all over me. And it's really not something to brag about. You want to be able to get out and like go into an offensive cycle. But hey, the guy was really heavy, and I'm lazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's not necessarily a good thing. It's maybe not as bad as some people think if you're thinking of like a submission only, no time limit. So like there's also maybe something to be said about the benefit of feeling so comfortable. He's like telling me, he's like, hey, why don't you like do something? You're like stuck under this guy. I'm like, I'm just chilling. You know what I mean? Like I'm just hanging out here. So that whole like impulse of like go, you got to do something. I totally don't have that. And I've seen like many jiu-jitsu academies, if not most, especially if they have a little bit of a competition like hunger. They want their students to compete and bring medals back to the academy, which isn't a bad thing because I think overall it kind of makes the jiu-jitsu a little bit better in the whole academy.
It's legitimate, right? Like it's validating your technique.
It gives interesting things to think about. Like if a student gets submitted with something in tournament, it's like an interesting thing to look at, or like what did they succeed at in the tournament? You know what I mean? But that whole like go, like if you're on bottom, you got to wrestle up and do something and do it fast, do it hard. I'm like not, I'm trying, but like I don't have that like that instinct. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, it's a different thing to like train jiu-jitsu and you're like training with your friends, or you just like are just hanging out versus like you have a certain amount of time to get work done to like to go out and win. And competition is like a different set of goals. More pressure. Cool. So how'd you get started in jiu-jitsu?
Like in jiu-jitsu? Okay.
Or I guess either. Like that. I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Is like I know that you got introduced to jiu-jitsu through Stevie, but maybe we should go over Stevie. Who is Stevie?
So Stevie,
the legend.
yeah. So I had a friend. I had a friend of mine who had a session with Stevie, and he's like, "Yo, that was some of like the craziest stuff I've ever like done. That is so cool. You should hit this guy up. He does this thing called functional patterns." And I'm like, "Ooh, okay, that sounds interesting." At the time, I've been a body worker, like fancy term for basically like a massage therapist that is specializing in rehab and prehab, and they're usually like looking at things from a structural perspective, meaning like it's not just like hitting the trigger point. They're actually like trying to correct muscle imbalances and try to get it somewhat to stay there for a longer period of time and heal scar tissue if possible, mobilize joints, potentially take pressure off of nerves. Just so basically a little bit more of a clinical approach to that's hands-on, like manual therapy. When the license to do manual therapy is like massage therapy for me. A physio would be his license is physical therapy. He may do the same stuff I do, but I'm able to do this stuff and learn all this stuff because I studied with all these different people that were physios and osteopaths and massage therapists too. So I went and saw Stevie and I had a session from him, and it was really interesting. Functional patterns is an interesting thing. And he was like HBS 2, like functional patterns level 2 at the time. And I thought it was like an interesting challenge. And Stevie seemed like an interesting guy himself. So I would like pay money and go do sessions with him. Just like anybody else, I'd make time in my schedule, pay the money, I'd drive, make time. And I did that for a while until almost he couldn't, until he left functional patterns, basically.
Right.
I did that until he left functional patterns. And I was so invested in the interesting things I was learning about with my body, with functional patterns, that when he left, I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? Dang, I want him to like show me all this cool stuff. I guess I'm going to go take a functional patterns course. So I'm like, so he's like telling Naughty, because he's friends with Naughty at the time, like about me, like, hey, can you get this guy in a course? Naughty's like, yeah, no problem. I'm like, dang, I'm going to go to a course. And I'm going to like, become Human Foundation certified so I can do all this cool stuff that Stevie was doing to me. Yeah. And it really didn't take long at all until like I was in the Facebook group for functional patterns for them to basically kick me out and then blacklist me just for asking like basically stupid questions to them where they interpret as stupid questions. I think it was like two strikes were against me. So I was like, these guys are complete assholes. And I'm going to go, and that's when I saw an ad for John Haddad's course with Syzygy. So the plan was for me, I had spent enough time with Stevie to know that he was an athlete. Like, this guy's an athlete, he can move well, and he has this deep knowledge about how, like, self-heal, like correct different stuff on his body and do all these interesting things and understand these exercises similarly to how I was thinking about doing body work on people, but he was doing it applied to like athletic or movement-based activities and then trying to identify certain therapeutic properties that certain exercises elicit, just like a physio would, except this is more like applied to exercises from if you imagine that you were using the model instead of NASM, you were using anatomy trains. That's basically the whole thing. It's like thinking like a physio, but you're applying exercises as if the foundation was anatomy trains instead of like the NASM model. So I was kind of inspired by his demeanor, Stevie's demeanor and stuff like that, and his athleticism and capability, and he was doing jiu-jitsu. I had actually done jiu-jitsu many years prior when I was like a dumb teenager. Me and my friend really were like, oh, let's like do a martial art, and like we ended up going to a jiu-jitsu class, and I can't even remember why we went to a jiu-jitsu class, but the memories when I was in there was so vague. The instructor didn't talk to us at all. He just like let us hang out there, and we're like, I feel like I'm in a crazy daycare where grown people are like fighting everywhere. You know what I mean? Like,
right, sure.
Like hanging out here for whatever reason to do something fun. We have no idea what we're doing. I'm on top of him and mount, and it feels weird. And like, I don't understand like anything that's going on. But
Sure.
some of the things I saw in the short time that I stayed there, because my friends stopped going, I was like, oh, well, why am I going to go? I was going for the
Sure.
wrong reasons at the time, and I didn't really know what I was
Mm-hmm.
seeing. If the professor just talked to me a little bit and explained stuff, I probably would have
Mm-hmm.
stayed.
Yeah.
But what I saw were like these grown men that were moving like lightning fast, like fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and then the fight would stop. And I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell? It doesn't look like karate. It doesn't look
Uh-huh.
like, it doesn't look like anything striking based, but there's so much movement, so much kinetic energy, and it
Mm-hmm.
looks so lethal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I just kind of like had that memory in my head. But as far as doing jujitsu, I'm thinking like, I know I want to do a martial art. And the logic was, if I'm doing all this stuff to my body, I might as well like use it. And some of the highest use
Sure.
of the body, if you're not playing I don't know, like a mainstream sport,
Mm-hmm.
is like a martial art, right? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't really want to learn, like, I want to learn a really cool martial art. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I want to learn jujitsu. And I probably
Sure.
have heard Joe Rogan talk about it. I had that one experience, that one memory, that one impression I had. And I had the example of Stevie. So I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go take this course with John, and I'm going to try to like just kind of get to know my body a little bit better, so that I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like when I go do jujitsu, like the guys that quit right away. You know what I mean? Where you're just
Sure.
getting
Yeah.
so destroyed, and you
Mm-hmm.
feel like kind of scared that your body hurts so much. I had the
Right.
confidence that at least if something went weird, that I could keep going because I could kind of like remedy myself. So I
Sure.
got my
Yeah.
education with John Haddad out in Germany, in biomechanics. I took his syzygy course, and I did exactly what I said I was going to do. When I was done taking the course, um, I learned a lot of like Persian yoga with Stevie. He was really into that.
Mm-hmm.
And Persian yoga, or how you could also call it like the Indian Akara system. Basically, like people swing maces and clubs. When all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, antiquity, was done by the for strength and conditioning for the military class, and also for the martial artists in those countries. The main martial
Mm-hmm.
art being, besides like combat martial arts, like it was mainly wrestling.
Right.
So it was like basically like a ancient grappling strength and conditioning system that was super developed. And in particular in Persia, the people that develop it were bone setters, which is like ancient chiropractic, meaning they had like they
Oh,
were operating a
interesting.
philosophy. Yeah. So all the way that the exercises were designed, like the meal and the saying, and this is what I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that till after the fact when I talked with
Mm-hmm.
Kashi, who actually like studied in Iran and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When me and Steve were doing things like the Sheena push-ups and stuff like that, we'd get these huge pops in like our body, and they didn't last
Mm-hmm.
forever, but they felt like these deep like joint settings. And I'm like, what is going
Mm-hmm.
on? It would only happen when we're doing it right. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
learned it, like the technique was correct. And then when I learned about that after, I realized that the way that the actual technique of the exercises, very specifically, if you do it just like you see it, just like a technique in jiu-jitsu, like if you study the
Yeah.
technique,
Mm-hmm.
you get these interesting therapeutic effects. And it really, the way the gravity is working on the body and the way that you're moving, it sets joints in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
um, so after I felt confident enough, I started going to jiu-jitsu. And it was just like, my first experience wasn't like the best, meaning my instructor, out of all the instructors, since I'm a Creone or whatever the hell the word is,
Uh-huh.
he was probably on the lower end,
Sure.
and I was just getting destroyed like all
Man.
the time. And like the best
Uh-huh.
advice I was like, hey man, if I'm on top of you, like don't extend your arms out. I can put you in an arm bar. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the
Right.
thing. Like this is
Okay. Yeah.
like this is an academy where it's like fist bump. I'm sprinting to your back and I'm trying to choke you like right after we clap
Yeah.
hands. You know what I mean? It's
Uh-huh.
like what do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, but the thing why I stopped going there was when the lockdown happened. I paid him full for a year. I was committing to
Uh,
myself. I'm like, yo,
yeah.
I'm not quitting jiu-jitsu. I'm doing this for a year. I'm paying this academy for a year. I'm gonna learn jiu-jitsu one way or another. I don't care
Yep.
how it happens. Lockdown
Right.
happened. I lost so much money. The guy wasn't gonna give
Fuck.
it back to me, and it just puts
Damn.
a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the essence of kind of how it got started. When I first started going through that experience of doing jiu-jitsu, when
Mm-hmm.
I rolled with Stevie, I got to actually like see a different side of him.
Mm-hmm.
Stevie Linton, if you guys look up his matches on Flow, he's got two good matches. One of them are like they're both good, but one he performed like crazy good. He's got a bunch of matches on YouTube too. He's competed a lot, and I think he was a black belt. He's with Hobson now. Hobson gave him his last stripe. I think he's got two stripes on his black belt,
Mm.
and he studied with the Ribeiro lineage and some guy that was in the Hickson lineage.
Oh
Um,
dang.
yeah, he's got a
He's
really interesting,
OG. Yeah.
yeah, like some OG roots and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I rolled with him, I was like a white belt. He's like, like, of course, yeah, he's not gonna like hurt you, but he's also like he told me verbally like I'm not gonna hold anything back. So the way that works
Yeah.
is like that was like 12 submissions in like 5 minutes of all
Right.
different kinds, where like you're like, what is going on? I'm being attacked
Right.
from
Yeah.
every direction at all
Yeah.
times. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was
Exactly.
inspiring enough for me. And the interesting
Mm-hmm.
thing is like you felt pretty much safe. Like every time like where something bad could happen in a submission,
Mm-hmm.
you mostly felt safe.
Sure.
But you're still screwed. Like the positional control is so good, and by
Mm-hmm.
the time you feel safe, it's pretty much too late. And you just tap. It gives you time to tap.
Right.
But that was inspiring
Yeah.
enough for me that it kind of led me to stick with it enough until I was blessed enough to start working with Ryan too. And I still get lessons
Mm-hmm.
from Stevie. We worked on some stuff a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah. But till I was blessed enough to start working with Ryan, and
Right.
we started going really deep in jiu-jitsu together. And hopefully that continues.
Yeah, for sure. So Ryan Scialoia is that
Scialoia.
the Scialoia? Okay, yeah.
Scialoia.
Previous guest on the podcast, but yeah, no, that's kind of how I think I found Stevie first. Like I've been following functional patterns for like years now, but I've never like actually ever done anything. And
Yeah.
I think they reposted Stevie out at some point, like doing his different swings and stuff, and
He was a
that
bit of an
like I
innovator.
started following
He
him.
did a lot of unique stuff for a couple years.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that Nadi took and used. But yeah, he came up with a lot of stuff, particularly with maces.
Hmm.
Particularly with maces, like using like a lot of OGFP moves, like with a mace. And then also trying to replicate like some of the effects, the chaotic, unstable, explosive effects of martial arts in judo, where you basically like when you're doing a mace swing, you throw the energy into the ground in some way, like you literally like you hit the mace on the ground, like and like you let it go or something like that.
Mm.
Like, throw a mace into the ground when you finish the swing to really get the whole like explosive effect and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. And that's kind of that's how I that chain like led me to following you and like kind of like watching the Free Will Gang evolve over time, and eventually I got into the group chat too. But now it's like half jiu-jitsu, half wrestling, and I don't know, other people who
It's
just don't want
mostly
to.
just disgruntled jiu-jitsu players,
Yeah.
that liken themselves to be wrestlers, dissing the people that have a little bit more of a deeper love for jiu-jitsu.
Sure.
The
Exactly.
BJJ monkeys versus the
the
wrestler bros, body
the
slam.
wrestling chads. Yeah.
The wrestling chads.
The wrestling chads. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, and I like around the time of the pandemic started, like I was like, okay, like regular gyms are closed. I don't have like regular weights, and regular weights like cost a lot of money. Like that, those people were like flipping weights for like $3-4 per pound, like unrealistic, crazy prices at the start of the pandemic. So I was like, okay, let me like buy stuff that's not that's unorthodox, and let me try this like these clubs and maces thing out. And that's how it kind of got started in terms of like and it totally changed I can see like how basically it's built for grappling. It got evolved through like the ages to Like, how have people been throwing maces and clubs and things like that? Like back in the
Long
day,
time,
like
man, like
is there that
thousands
long
of
time?
years,
So
thousands, like at
right,
least like to the earliest like antiquity of India.
yeah,
Uh, there's like debate: is it like more the Iranian region, the
uh
first
huh,
civilization, or more? Some people have this idea of like India being, particularly the Indians, think that they were the first. But either way, it's like you're looking at 2,000 plus years
yeah,
of people using that and like developing like philosophies to the point of like religion. Like
mm-hmm.
in Iran, it's like a religion. Like it's a crazy intense fraternity, and in
Mm-hmm.
India, it's one of the unique thing about India is it's the only place where in the caste system, the untouchables, the poorest,
Mm.
dirtiest, like Hassan level people, to the like Brahmins, right? Like
Yeah,
or like Chads, like the Chads, like the
sure,
the
yeah, sure,
highest
okay,
class. You know what I mean?
uh-huh,
Where they
sure,
mingle, where they mingle.
uh-huh,
So it's like the only place where like they can actually like spend
mm,
time together and even touch each other, because sometimes they're
mm,
grappling and stuff, or even healing each other, like
mm-hmm.
doing massages on each other and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's one of the only places where those social boundaries like they start to blur. And that's kind of interesting too, because like in jiu-jitsu, there's all kinds of interesting things that happen where status and like social standing just do not exist anymore.
yep,
Like theoretically, a cop, like a deputy, could get his ass
mm-hmm.
beat by an unapologetic crackhead or something like that.
Sure,
You know what I
right,
mean? So
uh-huh,
like anything can kind of happen.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
That so that's it. That's interesting that it's been that kind of neutral ground for thousands of for as far as we can like tell.
biomechanics
I
too
think.
is kind of like was
Yeah.
supposed to be like that, and in the best sense, like you're just kind of like trying stuff with each other, and you like what you
Uh huh.
like, and you stick to what you
Yeah.
stick to, but you're just like
Mm.
trying to spread and show stuff, with each other. Whereas in the worst sense, it becomes more of like a brand and a marketing thing,
Mm-hmm.
which only, you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
you're ruining body culture, like somatic
Sure.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
because in society right now, body culture. I don't know. You got the gym, you got the gym bros, and you have
Yep.
all the different like facets of the gym, and then you have like yoga studios,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe you got these other little niches like Pilates and cycling and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of places, which there are now a few of them, and there are always people that have been involved in biomechanics, where it's elevated to a sense where there could be legitimate martial arts. There could be all kinds of things that develop athleticism in terms of exercises. And then these exercises can be designed in a way to provide a number of kind of therapeutic benefits to the person,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be curated to that person, and that person can make his own discoveries that help him, ahead of feeling like there's something in the way of himself
Mm-hmm.
going with his body, or something that can't be improved on. So it's like supposed to be a really like empowering, optimistic activity to kind of involve yourself in, where the mind has more of an ability to give you things physically in your body from your own kind of like intelligence. You know what I mean? Like your mind,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like, hey man, this is how you like rep a dumbbell, but when you're actually studying movement and you're trying to use your body in a certain way in order to elicit certain sensations. That's like a
Sure.
different kind of thing. It's a little bit more open ended. It's the same in a lot of ways. Like when you're doing good technique in
Mm-hmm.
powerlifting or Olympic lifting, there's a sensation that can be felt, and also it should can kind of be looked at
Mm-hmm.
objectively. But you're trying to push
Mm-hmm.
it further away from just aesthetics or just hitting numbers, you're thinking more of like this subjective pursuit, that, for me has been very good for me. I've
Mm-hmm.
learned so many different ways of like adding to your body, from swinging maces to like, those ancient systems that we're talking about from India and Persia, and club swinging, and classic, functional, like neo functional training, post check functional training,
Mm-hmm.
where you have like Nadi Aguilar, John Haddad, Patrick, Cochran, a bunch of these guys that are really good, codifiers for ways of like changing your body and making it work like a tensegrity, like it
Uh-huh.
holds together better under gravity over time.
Mm-hmm.
To like now gymnastics. I'm really into gymnastics. I did the powerlifting thing, the bodybuilding thing, and each time I did it like a block, I've gained something from. There's only been a few things that I was just kind of like, eh. I usually gain something from it, like even in a small way, but there was a few things I didn't stick to for a long, long time. For me, Goto was
Mm-hmm.
one of them. Like when I did Goto, like
Mm-hmm.
I shrank like 10 pounds, and I was like, this is good if I want to be like a long distance runner. But
Sure.
at the time, for a while there, I was trying to beef myself up, particularly for jujitsu, so I could have a
Mm-hmm.
more pleasant experience doing jujitsu instead of being like 135, 140 pounds.
Right, you were skinny not too long ago. Like in the relative, like as an adult you were skinny, and then now you're pretty
Yeah,
stacked. So
yeah, yeah. Like I'm
yeah,
190 now. I've been at
yeah.
195 loaded, but I'm like 190 lean. And
Mm-hmm.
for a long time, I was 100, like 100 under, like under 145.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And you take a lot of wear and tear as being the smaller guy. That's a wise choice that you did. Is
yeah, yeah. I feel way, way, way more safer. My goal for me, like I wanted to be like 210, 215. So even the
mm-hmm.
big brutes, I could just
Yep.
be like, you're not gonna just like bulldoze through me. You know what I mean? While I work
Yeah.
on my technique at the same time, I got this layer of
Right.
meat that I can like have while I work on my technique. But
Exactly.
I just got sick of the grind after like 2 years, and now I'm kind of like hitting the brakes a little bit,
I see.
and working on different kinds of strength. The gymnastics, I got a good feeling about it, like this GSP philosophy that I haven't really tapped yet.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I think that's important to. Um, I mean, it's like you're periodizing your different training modalities, but
yeah.
like
That's
you
what.
haven't really gone back to like you're trying some, you, not to like say muscle confusion here, but you're just you're adding new things. You're adding new tools to your tool belt.
Taking time to learn things, and adding to those skills. And if I wanted to do any of those things, I could
Mm,
do them all. Like I would know how
yeah.
to do a deadlift, do a squat, do an overhead press, all these bodybuilding stuff, or swing maces and clubs, or do all the
Mm-hmm.
fancy little functional patterns, moves, the flashing moves.
Mm-hmm.
I could do all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, like if I
Right.
wanted to. It's not like you forget
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, and I think that's one of my secrets to like my relative like injury-free career is just being the biggest guy in the room, and generally the biggest guy in the room. There's some like monsters who are like bigger than me, and I do need like those hard training rounds and those different body looks. But yeah, for me, like I don't use my weight. That's it's a safety mechanism, but also a handicap. Whereas like, okay, I have to like not use all my strength. I have to actively turn everything down. I have to Feldenkrais my way through this technique, and just use the minimum amount of effort to move everything.
And I do the same thing, man. Even when
Yeah.
as I was gaining weight and getting stronger,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
did the same way. Ryan told me something hilarious during a private yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like clean kills, like
Yeah.
I like checkpoint jujitsu, where like I'm going through. I'm not trying to do like a crazy submission, out of the blue. I like
Yeah.
passing your guard, maintaining position, hopefully taking your back. I love taking the back and then choking you from your back. you know?
Sure.
Uh, like I like that checkpoint jujitsu, and that if I'm going backwards, it's just going to a place where you're getting tired. But the whole
Sure.
time, I'm not trying to use too much energy, kind of like what you were talking about.
Sure.
And Ryan, I guess, has a similar approach in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
In his career, and his professor Rodrigo, he's when he told me this, I laughed so hard. When people would go to roll with Ryan, his professor Rodrigo would tell the person, he's like, "Are you ready for the gentlest beating of your life?" I'm like, "That's
Of
how
course.
I. That's pretty much how I want to be. Like, that's pretty much
Yep.
how I want to be. I want to give you the gentlest beatings of your of your life, where like you are
Exactly.
definitely going to get learn something and get submitted, but it's going to be clean, crisp
Mm-hmm.
technique, good movement. It's not going to be like anything like just within reason. Obviously, like
Rolling
there's
with the
nothing
yeah.
is absolute,
You're
but like that's the
mm-hmm.
pursuit, right? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, you're not rolling with a bag of wrenches is the term we use. Is
Rolling with a
you're
back.
not getting like you're not getting hit with elbows or like you don't feel you sure you feel uncomfortable, but nothing's like sudden. Like you can see everything coming and you can't stop it.
Yeah, exactly. I like seeing people roll like you see John Jog roll in his academy. He's just so
Mm-hmm.
slick, man. He just sweeps them and submits them, and he's just like chilling the whole time. But people
Right.
like him, like Gordon, I like looking at Brian Glick, like the
Oh yeah.
stuff that he's just so even for us as a BB, like anyone who is training with like a lot of control.
Yeah.
When he was describing how like GSP, oh no, Chael Sonnen was talking about
Mm-hmm.
when him and GSP trained. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Chael Sonnen, I think that's how you say his name. I don't know how you say it, but that guy, he would try to get as many reps in of the technique within like 2 minutes, and then you
Mm-hmm.
switch to the next guy. So like
Sure.
it made him happy if he got like I don't know like 20 reps in, 30 reps, I don't know, in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But GSP, George St. Pierre, he would take his time and try to get perfect every single aspect of the technique, like every single aspect of the technique. And
Yeah.
when I'm watching people do jujitsu, you can see the technique there, but in live, like real time, there's just like a little bit of just athleticism thrown into every little movement. Like it doesn't look
Sure.
perfect. Like
Yeah.
if they're going for something, it's not sloppy, but it's things that are being done so fast, and they're not necessarily trying to be too perfect either. But I think
Mm-hmm.
there's some athletes that are really perfect, like people like Mikey, people like Gordon, where when you see
Mm-hmm.
them, you don't see any like blurry like edges to like their technique. Everything looks as if like in their training, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
able to like execute that all the way from like start to finish. It's interesting to see.
Yeah. Like when you start jujitsu, all you have is energy. You have zero technique, and that's why like white belts are some of the most dangerous humans in the room, is because they have no idea how to exert this energy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They don't have a dots to like draw the line across, right? Or they don't know what the picture even looks like, what they're even trying to do. So
Hmm.
as you learn technique, like that makes sense. Your observation of if you see yourself using athleticism while drilling the technique, then you're not actually getting the to the core of the technique, or you're using athleticism to make up for a lack of technique. Still,
Hmm.
even when you're like trying to learn it. So
Hmm.
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
kind of how I saw I've seen the whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and people like
That's
look at
cool.
me and they expect like more force. Like they're like, "Oh, he's a big
Sure.
dude. And he's gonna come in
Right.
hard," and
Yeah.
I'm not. But then they start thinking I'm
Yeah.
like a pussy too. So it's like it's this
Uh-huh.
funny thing where like I just have this idea in my head. Like if you looked at Horian versus Andre Galvao and
Uh-huh.
Metamoris, you would kind of think, is this guy soft? You know what I mean? Like, but he just had a different way of thinking about what was going on. You know what I mean? Um,
Interesting.
yeah, he just had,
Actually, I don't think I've actually watched that one, but
dude, you got to watch
okay.
that match. He
Yeah.
he's just chilling the whole time in like bad positions.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and like bad positions on Galval is just like frustrated, you know what I mean? Because it's not he's not meeting him with the same force that Galval's throwing at him, you know what I mean? Sure, he didn't
Right.
have all the know-how to like reverse the position and immediately go into a submission like a lot of the Danaher guys do, but he
Mm-hmm.
was doing what I consider to be more Helio style jiu-jitsu, like you know what I mean? So like Helio, he
Just
was renowned for his matches. He was a smaller guy. He would
mm-hmm.
win a lot of matches, but he was renowned for his matches going forever, like a really long
Right.
time. And he was willing to be in a
Mm-hmm.
bad position for a really long time, but eventually he came out on top. And that's why when like Ryan gave me a foundation and pretty good foundation in pin escapes that can still be improved a lot, but a pretty good foundation in that when I just got my blue belt, and that really does prepare you more for like a submission only, where there's no time limit and just
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Because if
Right.
I mean I've had a lot of people, training with me, and I'm sure this happens to a lot. But if you're really good at pin escapes, if someone's not gauging their energy correctly, they'll gas out trying to submit you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they'll get. I mean, why not? You're using
Yeah.
energy. If you're not gauging
Yeah.
yourself, it can happen from you trying to submit the guy on bottom, where you're in a dominant position, but you still end up gassing out, or at worst, getting submitted from the guy on bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, but that kind of gave me more of that submission no time on. That goes back to the point of like a little bit different mentality than like go go go. There's time on the clock. You got 3 points or no points, and you got to do X Y Z. You know.
Right. Yeah. That's I guess my first coach, Dave Camarillo, he said rules dictate behavior. So it all depends what your context is.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if you're, depends all on the rule set. Like if you're in IBJJF or ADCC, like there's a certain amount of time on the clock. Okay, you have to like go and get your points.
Hmm.
Versus submission only, no time limit, that kind of thing. It's like okay, yeah, you can kind of chill and like see how it plays out. Like the Gordon versus Philippe Pena match that just happened, and like Gordon wasn't totally passing right away, or he
Right.
wasn't. It seemed like he was playing with his food a little bit, or
Hmm.
it seemed somewhat even, but he was just kind of like letting it draw out and letting it
Hmm.
kind of play out um, for
Definitely.
his for as long as Bennett wanted to do it. So
Definitely. I agree with that. Hmm.
yeah. So given all this, like, what does grappling mean to you? Like, what is it?
Jiu-jitsu
Or
is
jujitsu? Yeah.
yeah, like jiu-jitsu. Well, I mean, hey, I'm not anti-wrestling. I would like to get better at wrestling, and I would like to
Sure.
learn judo and stuff. So, grappling, for me, it's been so interesting to kind of see the effects that you can't necessarily anticipate on that. What practicing jujitsu over and over, like not missing a week,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people do that for a long, long time. For me, it was for like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But doing something like that, because I remember listening to Bernardo, and he's like, the best advice I can give for someone is that go train at least once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Once a week, even if you chill and slow down, and you're just not
Yeah.
training like 4 or 5, don't stop completely. Like
Yep.
either watch or like go train at least once a week. And I've always tried to do that. Like even with my cauliflower ear,
Right.
all my wrestling bros, know about that. But I did the thing they don't do, and I got it drained and taken care of. But
Right.
anyway, anyways, um, I was still in, I watched, I just watched for one day and
Mm-hmm.
just was going to say what's
Sure.
up to everybody.
Yep.
Just to kind of be in the environment and still be in that state. But as far as like what it
Mm-hmm.
what it means to me, a lot of the meaning comes after the fact of how it changes you as a person in ways that you don't know how are going to happen. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like so many things in life that are important to you. They change you in ways that you cannot anticipate or understand. But usually after the fact, they make you a kind of person that you're more proud to be,
Mm-hmm.
and that you may be a happier person.
Mm-hmm.
You have more pride in your life and the things that you do, stronger character, more confidence, all the things that the old school Gracies would talk about that what jiu-jitsu will give you. A
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
a lot of it is true. Like when you're having a hard conversation with somebody, you know how to like
Mm-hmm.
not break, not like fold under the tension. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
Mm-hmm.
you know like not to um, puff yourself up. You can be strong, you know, as who you are, and that in itself is something a lot of people don't have. Like they may be confident or just like feel comfortable, but like the sense of confidence comes from like this different place of you having gone through many difficult challenges where
Mm-hmm.
your chemistry and your hormones were being provoked to go into a state of panic and fear, and you
Mm-hmm.
chose to remain in control, aware, and intelligent as possible so that you can
Yeah.
make a decision. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then you
Right.
maintain that attitude for a stretch of time. You know what I mean? Or throughout
Sure.
the whole
Yeah.
like sparring session or whatever
It's
you're
part.
doing.
It's part of your. It's like, yeah. You maintain it over. Yeah. The class time, but then also like if you do it every day, you maintain it over. Yeah. Eventually the course of your life. Like it eventually is part of what you do, who you are.
Yeah, so it fortifies your character, and that's just like a really good thing. Like the whole character thing isn't just this ultra moralistic like good citizen. You know, although you may
Yeah.
be nothing wrong being like a good citizen in the world, but character that I'm talking about is kind of like spiritual. It's kind of existential. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's kind of like it's a very existential kind of how do I say this? Like just solidity, like a
Mm-hmm.
solidity of self. Like your self isn't going to just fragment and kind of splinter and break under some kind of pressure, but that
Mm-hmm.
maintaining of that solidity of self, your sense of self, that sense of awareness and control, isn't this overcompensated thing that we see all the time in the world now, like
Mm-hmm.
either in a just ignorant, aggressive person, or like
Yeah.
a virtue signaling Karen. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
either of those things. It's like an actual like sense of solidity in your your sense of self and having integrity. And when you're doing when you're doing jujitsu, like you get to really be a good person in a lot of ways. You're like fighting someone, and you get to operate and work in the way that you want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, so that is also interesting that you can kind of empower yourself by choosing your style. The
Yeah.
style in which you
Sure.
operate.
You get to know who you are. I
Yeah,
think like
yeah,
that's where like when I first started it in college, like circa 10 years ago. I was in college. I was like very confused about what I wanted to do, who I was,
mhm,
and I kind of like I was very unconfident prior to that. I was like I was a book nerd, or not book nerd, but like just goody two shoes in school. That's all I knew how to do is like make good grades,
mhm.
have good guy friends or whatever. But I didn't really know who I was like to me, and I feel like that's going through like I did wrestling in high school, and that was cool, and like that kind of like set me up for this, but doing this like day in day out year round, it really kind of I don't know. It's like it is a spiritual thing. Like
It's
I'm not a spiritual woo
it's
woo
a
kind
kind
of
of
person,
spiritual
but
thing, right?
it is like you it is a ritual that you go and do, and you kind of cast yourself in this like whatever you're putting yourself into this tough environment,
Mhm,
and you are learning things about yourself, where you
mhm.
can improve, what you're good at, what you can like what you need to work on. And
It's infinitely easier to like just not do that and quit jujitsu than to
yeah,
show up. You know?
yeah, sure,
Yeah.
exactly. but you kind of figure out, yeah, who the character, I guess, that is underneath all that, underneath all of the whatever, the baggage that you bring with yourself, like your job, your financial issues, or your whatever relationship issues, or whatever things you have going on. Like it's time that you kind of can be like, you're focused on one thing, and it's that self that kind of modulates that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, like, yeah. I love what you're saying, and like when like before I spar, you know what I mean? Like, you're thinking like, okay, well, what kind of feeling am I feeling right now? Like, especially when you're going against a guy that you know is gonna like beat the crap out of you, you know, but you're still gonna do your best. Still gonna do your best, you know?
Yeah,
you're gonna do your best. Anything can happen, you know what I mean? And you're gonna do your best, and anything can happen. But that courage that kind of comes about, instead of like, oh my God, I'm just gonna really psych myself up and just throw myself at him again, like that white belt like mentality, you know what I mean? But all those like emotional states that you have to like regulate and have control over, whether it's courage or you're going against a person, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna roll with this person, and I'm gonna not abuse this quality that is an advantage of mine. I'm going to deprive myself of that so that I can work on this. And hey, maybe they'll submit me. It doesn't really matter. But I'm giving myself the opportunity where I can learn something, and maybe they can learn something about themselves that is positive, that they could do something to me they think they didn't do, which for them may mean like they just passed your guard, or were close to passing your guard, or they were close to submitting you, or maybe they did submit you. You know what I mean? I took a seminar with Tynan Dalpro, and like one of the things he said was, he was like, whoever I'm training with, I try to make it a good training for both of us.
Yeah.
No matter who they are, black belt, white belt, kid, woman, large, small. I try to make it a good training session for both of us. You know.
Yeah.
And I try that attitude too.
Yeah, totally agree, because you're limited by your training partners. You're not gonna be surrounded with 80cc champions, like, or whatever. Like you have to kind of like train the entire room up. You can't. It's everyone getting better together. So it's an individual art, yes. Like in competition, like you're going out there by yourself, but it's the environment that you're training in. It's the entire room preparing you for going out there in competition if you compete. But while you're just training, like you're trying to help everyone else get better, and you're and like I've had to like figure this out like firsthand, just being the biggest guy and like usually the strongest guy. I have to like turn everything down. I have to like nerf myself in order to like make productive roles for me and whoever else is in front of me.
Yeah, and then you get better.
Right. Yeah, that's the weird thing. It's like, you don't have to be going balls to the wall. You don't have to have Pohada sparring sessions to get better.
For sure.
We don't need acai and Jesus every round to get better.
Oh, that's fun.
So, yeah, that's cool. I think that's and that's a major like cultural difference between like jiu-jitsu players and wrestlers. Wrestling, I think it's because you're in the room and it's a team sport, and there's like designations of like, oh, this is the JV team, this is the varsity team. Like everyone's kind of competing all the time. Like it's not as much of a cooperate. Like, yes, people cooperate because they're all on the same team, but you're also all trying to compete for the same spot. And versus jiu-jitsu is like we don't have teams. We don't have like a limited number of team slots. We don't have a 189-pound weight class slot to go out and you go compete for. You represent the team at this weight class or whatever. It's I think that's it's a very American thing, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
versus,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, I digress on whatever, wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. So how has like biomechanics, like, do you see, like, I mean, of course you're using your body in both, but what kind of crossover have you seen between the two, biomechanics and jiu-jitsu?
I think the more I do jujitsu, the more I understand it. But the best jujitsu teachers,
Mm-hmm.
they have an understanding of biomechanics, like anatomy of the
Mm-hmm.
body and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because the reason why the techniques works is because it's short circuiting biomechanics, which means that you have to like reverse engineer how biomechanics works. In biomechanics, the way I usually learn about it, you're trying to get things to move forward so that
Mm-hmm.
movement can continue. Whereas in
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, you're exactly doing the opposite. You're trying to get movement to stop um,
Yeah.
temporarily or permanently, or
Sure.
divert
Sure.
movement, divert movement,
Uh-huh.
um, and just put yourself in a position where you can continue moving. So it's this thing where it's actually moving in both directions because you want to keep
Mm-hmm.
moving, but you don't want them to move. Um,
Sure.
so it's like it's working in both directions. So I think I was right on my, in me deciding to study jujitsu that it would deepen my understanding of like biomechanics,
Mm-hmm.
um, because you really are taking it, really to a really advanced kind of level. I don't know how all these techniques get innovated and developed. I've never like developed, a technique. You know what I mean? Especially ones that stand the test, like tests of pressure. They work at a world championship level.
Sure.
Like I don't know if John Danaher like innovated that shoulder crunch Shumigashi. I think he did, and how much stuff he did innovate. And I know there's a lot of experimentation going on in that room, and I know it's like
Mm-hmm.
that in a lot of different places in jiu-jitsu, especially if there's really good like world champions there.
Yeah.
And that essentially is no different than what happens with biomechanics. It's just
Mm-hmm.
taken, in my opinion, to a more complex place because there's way more variables. When you have two jujitsu players that know jujitsu, you're trying to work a technique that works at the highest level against two people that are really good, like world class.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. You're
So
moving your body and their body.
yeah, so it's like you
Is
take
it-
two world champions and you guys both know a
Yeah.
lot of jujitsu, and now you're trying
Yeah.
to like do things that's going to put you ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
That changes according to the person, but if it works on one person at that high of a level, it usually works on a huge flood of people below
Sure.
that, like huge,
Yeah.
broad, swaths of human beings that, again, that would work on. But just to give a basic example, with like biomechanics and stuff, um, getting injured in jiu-jitsu, like the biomechanics is the same. Like when you get heel
Mm-hmm.
hooked, your tibia is going in the opposite direction of your femur.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting ankle locked or, you're taking a joint through a range of motion, like that's too far, and
Sure.
people get injured from having very limited range of motion in jiu-jitsu,
Right.
or just wear and tear, over time, or a little bit of both. It
Mm-hmm.
demands a lot of knowledge, I think, on how to just like remedy the body. One of the most interesting things that have happened is Hickson Gracie got into a mainstream biomechanics system, like the same systems me and you talk about. That seems niche
Mm-hmm.
and avant-garde. He got into a
Right.
system that is no different in popularity from any of these other ones. And the one he chose was foundation training. And
Mm.
the Rotolo brothers got into it too. And, people look at Hicks and they're like, oh, he's so mobile and fluid. Like back in his day, you're watching Choke, the documentary and stuff.
Yep.
If you know a little bit
Yep.
more, you know how injured he's been in the last, like, for a long, long time.
Sure.
And he couldn't remedy that himself, and it crippled
Uh-huh.
his ability to do jujitsu for a really long time. But he's doing a biomechanics system right now, and
Mm.
through working with that system, he's getting to the point where he can do way, way, way more. And like he feels like he could almost like get back to like sparring, or maybe he already is sparring. And you're seeing
Mm.
him do all these kinds of movements and give really good testimonials about that. And he learned about that through, I believe, Henner Gracie put him on
Okay.
to that. And now the Rotolos are doing it. And you see these jujitsu
Mm.
guys, they're just trying to figure out how to heal their bodies, man. And it's sad sometimes. Like you need some strong medicine sometimes for like a jujitsu thing. Like meaning like you need a
Sure.
powerful systems.
Yeah.
And you need to learn as much as possible. Like when I teach someone about biomechanics, usually I just try to show them as much as I can without overwhelming them, and do chunking. Like this is what mobility looks like. This is what these correctives look like from like a gait-based perspective, or this is what this corrective looks like from this philosophy, and that's what that feels like, and
Mm-hmm.
see what they respond to and what they like. The other approach is that you just stick to a system, for a while and you see how it goes. But the thing is, it's like, I don't know if Hickson's going to run into this or anybody else. When you've been into it like I have, eventually you run into limitations in the system that create like compensations.
Sure.
So when do you know to change? What do you change to? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know like where that's going to lead for people when they do become privy to like all these different ways of like taking care of their own body, repairing their own body, and jujitsu. But in terms of like doing technique and stuff, like for example, you have like Mikey, like you want to put the foot on the hip bone
Mm.
here to like do the sweep, because when you're on the bone and instead of the muscle, it immobilizes them. Or like
Mm-hmm.
do a collar grip on your clavicle. See what happens when they push here and it's here. They teach you this in all the academies. If it's a good
Sure.
professor, he'll
Yeah.
show you like this is why we do it this way, and
Yeah.
if we do it like this happens when we're doing this technique. That's essentially is biomechanics. It's like, okay, I
Sure.
can control you here, but if I just deviate a little bit, I can't control you anywhere near as good, if at all. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that, yeah, maybe, well, because, yeah, jujitsu, we only show techniques in the class, or we only spar in the class. And then it's kind of on everyone individually to figure out how to unfuck themselves, like outside of class. Like when you do jujitsu, you become a roly poly. You like are like all caved in like this, and you like are playing guard, and you're encouraged to have this like terrible posture because it's for that context. It's functional.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, you have to, and people prescribe like quote unquote just yoga, just go do yoga or just lift
Some
weights,
bridges.
but huh?
Do some bridges.
Just do some bridges, yeah. Like these kind of blanket suggestions
Yeah, in my
versus like,
opinion,
go ahead.
just take the same sophistication that you take toward jujitsu and like that
Yeah.
you need to have to get a black belt one day, and just have it
Mhm.
towards the same attitude on like all the stuff you're studying,
Sure.
to like learn how to repair yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and enlightening us with, yeah, all this different whatever. I totally forget what all we talked about, but it was awesome.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah. What anything you want to plug, or what?
No.
Where can people? You don't want people to find you?
No, exactly.
No. Okay. All right. So
I'm the Uke and Ryan Scialoia.
yeah. Okay.
Unpinnable DVD. Go buy that shit.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Go buy Ryan S's stuff. I totally forget how to say his last name again, but
All right.
I'll link it in the description. So
Thanks,
awesome.
bro.
Thank you, John. All right.
Take care, man.
Thank you. See you.